Here we are then, the actual start of the new championship season. Sheffield United 0, Birmingham City 0. The only championship game today and yesterday to have 0 goals in it. It's all right for you lot. I've got to get half an hour out of this. My name is Simon Brew, and a very warm welcome to Thoughts on the Blues. Evening. A very warm welcome to Thoughts on the Blues. Couple of changes around here. I'm dedicating this particular apple juice, honestly, it's been a long day, to Alex Cochrane, who's somewhere out there. He's on a coach driving back from Sheffield, nursing a stiff whiskey and wondering why couldn't just one person get on the end of one of those crosses. Just one. To you, Alex, I'm going to have my first apple juice of the season. Cheers to you. I am recording this quite late on Saturday night as well, so if I make less sense than usual, I mean, it will be to the surprise of nobody. Now, one of the biggest criticisms I had of Thoughts on the Blues last season, and there were many, was the accusation, the scurrilous accusation that the curtains behind me, I can't believe I'm starting with this, were claret. Right, I'm a film nerd, right? So I occasionally do film videos as well, and I have red cinema curtains. Red. Look at them. Anyway, because this became such a point of contention, I've redecorated. Have a look. Even Skeletor at the back there now has a hat on his head. This will be useless to those of you who listen to the audio podcast version of this, available from all good sources, etc. But for those of you looking at the video, there you go. You've got a blue curtain. You've got Kermit the Frog hiding there as well. And I'd like to say it all went swimmingly, but I've still got a leak over there. And the frame that the curtain was hung on fell apart and nearly hurt me a lot. And that's all the information you're getting about that. You can fill in with your imagination. So a couple of things going into our first league match of the season. First, a very big welcome to Birmingham City, to Max Bird. We signed a player. If you're the kind of person who's inclined to go on Facebook to get your Birmingham City conversation and news, and I fully accept there are some lovely people on there and some very constructive ones, I'm just going to politely suggest there are some who aren't. Let's go with aren't. So, a couple of things. Number one, you'd have probably followed the Joe Gelhardt saga, where he signed for Hull City, nearly signed for us. This happens loads. I'm still waiting for Charles Nzogbia to turn up. I'm not over Trevor Francis not signing Mark Birchall. That's how many times I've been round this block. Someone who signs for someone else, I mean, it's just like a Tuesday to a Blues fan, isn't it? And the players I care about are the ones who actually sign on the dotted line. I think it's Daniel Ivory who always puts on Small Heath Alliance. It's just like, until I see them in front of the cop holding a scarf, I don't believe they're ours. I think that's very, very sage advice. You go on Facebook, you think we're just like in massive trauma land. No one wants to sign for us. Everything's terrible. The world's ending. Not least by the fact that we only announced our away kit, 2 or 3 days ago? Where's that gone? Everything's gone wrong. Look, we were never going to play Sheffield United naked. I hate to be the one to break it to you, nor were we going to do the Doug Ellis thing of like scratching off the best before date on the sweets. Apparently this happened. It was always going to happen. It's happened a bit later than we thought, but that's because now we've got a gambling company sponsoring us, who I absolutely do not endorse and find them all fairly evil, which knackers any chance I've got of this show getting sponsored. So we're all going down together, folks. That's the way I look at it. Last night, also, at the point of recording, it's worth noting that Wolverhampton Wanderers returned to the Championship with a game at home to Blackburn Rovers. I do want to note this because I'm surrounded by loads of Wolves fans where I am. I'm in Halesowen. A big hello to the Halesowen Official Supporters Club. Paul, you're doing amazing work. I'm surrounded by Wolves fans who are telling me how they are just going to absolutely blitz the league. And maybe they will. But the reality check last night, where a spirited Blackburn team with Tony Mowbray, to whom I wish no ill will, I mean, they deserve to take 3 points at Molineux. The only reason they didn't get them was a mildly questionable penalty kick in the 93rd minute. But my favourite bit of this was where the Sky commentator, and God bless Sky, because they have to hype things up to ridiculous levels, right? The Sky commentator, Raul Jimenez, on his return to Wolves, the commentator says as the ball goes in, it's the homecoming he dreamt about. Really? Really? Do you really think like a year or so ago, Raul Jimenez was in his bed thinking, I really hope in August 2026 I get a dodgy last-minute penalty against Blackburn Rovers in the Championship? Is that what he dreamt about? I'm going to suggest no. Let's go to Blues. Let's go to Blues. I'm happier with Blues. So, Chris Davies has been doing pre-season interviews. I mean, we're still not decided if last week was the start of the season or not, but I think it probably was. Still, this is definitely the start of the league season. Chris Davies has been giving pre-season interviews, and he said he wants 70 goals this season. And you get 70 goals, sporting chance, you're going to be in like the top 3 or 4 places. It's fair enough. My thing is, I'd like 70 shots on target. I mean, I think that would be a significant upgrade, and I think we've got it in our locker. And I'm so confident of this that I am willing to donate 12p per shot on target to the BBC Children in Need appeal. So off the back of the stats from the 2 matches we played so far, who have we played? We played Swansea away and we've played Sheffield United away. So we have had in those 2 games 3 shots on target. That is 36p. I am personally going to donate to Children in Need. And that means there's, I don't know, a child in Wigan who's going to get half a packet of fizzy chewits because Jay Stansfield chose to have a like 25-yarder, and it's just like, look, I'm good for the money. Look, I tell you what, I'll round it up for £1. The killer will be shots on target. We may come back to this point. So we go to Sheffield United, who we played 3 times last season, and effectively we played 3 different teams from what I can work out. And did we play them the second match of last season in the Caravan Cup? I think it was that when Hamer got that halfway. Kyogo scored. Of course, Kyogo scored. Do you remember that? Of course you bloody remember that. We all remember that. So Kyogo scores. Stansfield gets the late winner after they scored from the halfway line. But I remember after the Caravan Cup tie against them thinking, oh, they're not good. And then they absolutely murdered us. And then we had the home game where, let's just say, Jack Robinson gave them a hand. So it's 3 very different games. And I'm still in the mindset that we're still first match of the season. Doesn't tell you a lot. It's just good not to lose it. I think loads of Blues fans, certainly in Hales Owen Official Supporters Club, certainly on Small Heath Alliance, were saying we got a draw at Sheffield United. That's a good start to the season. I think most of us were at that point going in. And so, I mean, we get to this game not quite knowing which Sheffield United we're going to get. And then, so I watched this in a slightly unusual way, which I'll come to in a second. But it's notable that amongst the things that Sky throws at you at the start of the match, I wasn't in Sheffield. I'll tell you where I was in a minute. It was that they've signed 3 players and it's loans and frees. Ramel Donovan, one of them. Callum O'Hare is in their team as well. Callum O'Hare, what a special place he holds in hearts of Blues fans. He's as welcome really as, I don't know, the dentist at your front door when you're halfway through a Mars bar. He's that kind of player. And so there was, I don't know, Sheffield United and Blues strike me as now travelling in different directions, but incredibly slowly in different directions. I may be right, I may be wrong. It looks like Sheffield United have got some kind of financial crunch on, that their transfer activity has been so frugal, I think. And they seemed on paper a slightly weaker team, apart from in defence, than the one we played 17 times last season. I also want to note as well that we're still in the transfer window for another, I'll come to the match and say, we're still in the transfer window for another 2.5 weeks or so. So we've got a lot of like Facebooky stuff to get through together. If we all stay strong, we can get through it together. And we link arms and sing songs and shit like that. We can do that. I just want to reinforce this. There are some people who go on Facebook, who go on Small Heath Alliance, who are in the know. ITK, they're in the know. They have some inside track information. They know what's going on. It is fair to be absolutely upfront to those who have discovered this channel for the first time that I know the wrong side of sod all. If you are looking for in the know, I am not it. I am a weird bloke with a wonky eye in Hales Owen who's put a cap on Skeletor behind me. That's not someone who's going to tell you who's signing for us next week. I think we've still got 2 or 3 signings coming home, but I may as well have predicted that with a dartboard for all the in the know that I am. There's loads of people who claim to know this or know that. I'm not one. I haven't even got the energy to spark those fake rumours that then get picked up by someone on whatever Twitter's turned into now, and then that seems to become a thing. I mean, we could make one up together, couldn't we? I don't know. David Beckham's offspring is going to play right back. I don't know. Let's see if that gets traction. My guess is no. The fundamental point here is I know next to nothing. I'm a boring man who watches my team and then moans to you lot about it. And this is, as those who followed this last season, the first season where I'm moaning without my father. So you lot are getting it like double dose as far as I'm concerned, because I can't complain to him anymore. I lost him. It's all on you now. I mean, if you're listening to this, thank you for my weekly Birmingham City group therapy. It is much appreciated. So we finally get to the match. So a bit of context on how I had to watch this. Because Sky had messed around with the times again, I watched this in bits. So I mean, last Christmas, I occasionally tried to be a vaguely decent parent. My kids would tell you I'm absolutely not, rubbish at that. My daughter wanted to see Mrs. Doubtfire at the Birmingham Hippodrome. Bear with this, it does link to football in a second. As such, I bought her tickets, not really wanting to see it. I go to the theatre every now and then. I like stuff there. The idea of a Mrs. Doubtfire musical, no, it wasn't high on my list, but she wanted to go. So I booked us tickets, and wouldn't you know, it turned up on the 15th of August 2026 at 7:30. All would have been fine if Sky hadn't stuck their oar in with their advert saying we've got 1,500 games this season. Yeah, I bet you're glad you chose this one, Sky, the only championship game to have no goals. Maybe next season, as a tip, why don't you have 1,499 games and leave me in peace? So what that meant is I had to time this. I watched all of the first half, got in the car, listened to the excellent Richard Wilford on Radio WM to listen to the second half, and then I've come back after watching Mrs. Doubtfire. I'll give you a review in a minute if you want. More goals in Mrs. Doubtfire. And I've watched the second half of the match on Sky. I've poured myself some apple juice. Begging your pardon. Hang on. And now I'm talking about the game. So it does mean I've watched it all, but it just means that, I mean, my memory of the first half seems to be a little more distant than my memory of the second half. It's struck me, God, there's one thing that happened, right? Can I just do one more bit of Mrs. Doubtfire, which is relevant to football, right? So I watched the film donkeys ago when it came out, and in fairness, the stage production changes things. I mean, threw in a FIFA joke at one point. It was just like, I respect that. But there was a moment that unified the audience at the Birmingham Hippodrome tonight in abject horror of wondering about the treatment of youngsters. And it was a very, very serious point, because what this Mrs. Doubtfire show has done is it's made things more modern. It's changed some of the references. It's changed it from the film. But fundamentally, there's still a family with 3 kids. So you've got an elder daughter, a younger daughter, and the middle child who's a boy. And the middle child in this, honestly, we've got to get through this together. And imagine being in the room when this happened. Just imagine how difficult this was. They've rewritten the middle child, I'm not making this up, as an Aston Villa fan. He came on stage in an Aston Villa shirt in one of the most abject moments of child just horribleness. I mean, it was a moment where the audience gasped in collective horror. I held up a sign just saying blink twice if you want me to call the authorities now. But in fairness, I mean, the kid in the role was great, terrific, really good, especially in such trying circumstances. They genuinely rewrote the character, presumably just for the Birmingham version. It'd be a bit weird if it was in the London one or the New York one, as an Aston Villa fan. Now, I checked on the way out tonight what that theatre was called, and it says on the outside, the Birmingham Hippodrome. The Birmingham Hippodrome. Doesn't say the bloody Aston Hippodrome, does it? And at the point, I mean, you'll be proud of this, at the point where this kid is forced to say, how much money did they give the poor child? Forced to say that he was an Aston Villa supporter. Genuinely, the audience turned a bit. So I was in that crowd watching that collective horror in the midst of comedy. They always say theatre, right, is a bit of comedy and tragedy. There was a lot of comedy, but the tragedy at the heart of that, it ripped my heart out. Fancy putting that poor kid through that. Honestly, thoughts and prayers. This one's to you out there. Your work tonight was terrific. Doubly difficult given the really trying conditions you did it in. You'll note that I'm like a good way into this chat and we've not actually got to the football match yet. I wonder why. The team selection, exactly the same as the away game at Swansea in the Caravan Cup last season. We've been drawn at home to Brentford in the Caravan Cup. I should know. You probably know that. But I have to tick the box. Consider that box tick. And so we're unchanged. Now, this is interesting because, I mean, it reaffirms we were taking the Caravan Cup vaguely seriously, but also it was a really good away performance last week. Whether you regard it as I know, inverted commas, proper match, pre-season friendly, however we chose to approach it, it was the kind of away performance we hadn't seen this that often last year. It's really important to note, I think, before we get into the guts of today's game at Bramall Lane, to note, we have had two very ground out away performances on the bounce now. The kind of away performances that would have had a material impact on our season last year. And I mean, we've all hit this point. No, most of us have brought it up that the number of times we'd lost an away game by half time last season it was too many to count, really. It was quite depressing, wasn't it? I mean, most of us have blitzed December for a whole bunch of reasons. And thank God they sell us drink at that point. Alcohol is not the answer to your problems, my friends. But it was a very grim time where you couldn't go away from home and buy a sausage roll from Greggs, yet alone a goal. Here we've done two really strong away performances on the bounce with the same problem at the end of it. You know where this is going, but still, it is important to note that we've changed our style. We've changed the foundations of how we play away from home. Note how in two matches we have not played out from the back. How James Beadle goes long, and more often than not, his long balls are going to someone or someone is chasing them down. It's subtleties, right? But these things matter, and the number of shots on target people have had against us has been minimal. The only times really are, most of the time when we've made some kind of error to let people in. But I think we've looked pretty solid for two away games now, and I can't remember the last time I said that, two away games on the bounce. We're a long way from all our problems solved, but in terms of we're looking for improvement, there, slap bang in front of us, is an improvement. 2 clean sheets away from home. And I mean, twice, appreciating both Swansea and Sheffield United had chances. They didn't really look like scoring unless we sort of let them. If any Sheffield United fans have come in, I know one of them who might check in, who's a friend of mine. I mean, you're very welcome. Let's face it, I need the clicks. You know, I've done so much in these opening 15, 20 minutes to reduce your expectation of what you're going to get. I need the clicks. I'll take them. Great. But sod off. This isn't for you. I'm not here to big up Sheffield United. I've got no problem with your team. You know, Chris Wilder last season was quite complimentary against us. I remember stuff like this, but I don't want to talk about you. This isn't for you. I'm a Blues fan, and this is about Blues. So, the other thing about our starting 11 wasn't just that we hadn't changed it from last week. The other thing, I mean, you look at the lineup, we didn't have any of our new signings in it at all. Every single player, appreciating Jhon Solis has been made permanent, right? But every single player who was in our starting 11 was on the books of Birmingham City Football Club last season. And increasingly bringing Vicente and Prischke and Solis in January and letting them bed in whether by design or whether by accident, has proven to be quite the positive decision. Now, on the bench, we have Max Bird, just brought in from Bristol City. Kanya is back on the bench. Dale Fry is on the bench. Luis Vasquez is on the bench. Christopher Lund is on the bench as well. So the new signings are there. We've had, 6 bodies technically in, appreciating we've re-signed players from last season. But none of them are in the starting lineup. This is fairly consistent, the team that we're putting out, and they look like a team. And it's small things like the fullback goes and intercepts tackle. Phil Neumann walks over, who's been linked with other clubs again this week, walks over and gives them a high five. And these are like tiny little things, aren't they? They may make a difference, they may not, but there's just a sense of they actually know each other and they're playing together, and there's some degree of unity to it. As we kick off, I mean, the intriguing thing about the opposition is there's Ramel Donovan on the opposition side. Is it Lee Hendry who's on Sky Analysis saying Donovan has a point to prove against us? My understanding is he wanted to go. Like, we gave him his break. So I don't think there's a hard done by case. I don't wish him ill will or anything like that. But, this whole, did he have something to prove? No, of course he didn't have something to prove. He makes his decision. He's young. He lives by his decision. It's fine. He doesn't want to be a Blues player. That's fine. I ain't cheering you. You put in a decent cross or two and a few crap crosses or two. All right, that's as much of my brain space as you're getting. That notwithstanding, within 30 seconds, we'd given the ball away. Donovan had put a cross in. And at first, I just sat there in that first minute and just thought, oh, I've seen this film before, and it didn't have a very happy ending, and generally involved me going on the internet at the end of it and moaning. And a 0-0 draw is useless if you're making videos like this, friends. It's just absolutely useless. In fact, I should probably plug my book now, because it's useless. Because if you get hammered, I hate it being hammered as a Blues fan. It's great for traffic. Honestly, it sends it. I make an extra £4 off the ads every time Blues get hammered. 0-0, useless. As such, I've forgotten to do this. This is how rubbish I am at this. My book's on sale. Thank you for people who've been leaving nice reviews on this. Keeping Right On is my diary of last season following the Blues, and pretty much every sideways pass is diarised in this. There'll be a thing at the very end of this with QR codes and stuff like that. If you search Keeping Right On Amazon, it's on there. One thing I did spot fairly early on, as pretty much everyone spotted, again, I'm no genius, was that our fullbacks were in action fast. So Bright Osayi-Samuel's given an interview this week where he's talked about how he wasn't really that fit last season. It wasn't the biggest revelation you've given in the world, I would imagine. I mean, something was a little bit off with him last season, especially after he shot out the traps so well at home to Ipswich and then kind of faded and drifted in and out. Against Swansea last week, he was my man of the match. Today, I thought he was great. I thought he just kept going, and him giving that interview is interesting to my tiny mind, because I was just like, all right, maybe there's a fitness problem. Maybe that was part. I don't care what was wrong last season. I just want it right this season. In the 2 games to date, Bright Osayi-Samuel in this season, to me, has been really good. No grumbles at all. No grumbles at all. The flaw in our team setup, however, in these 2 games has been, it's basically an absence in our transfer recruitment so far, if we're being blunt. That Peck Sung-ho, a very cultured footballer, I've got a huge amount of time for, feels a bit too far up the pitch to me. I'm not sure I want him in that kind of attacking role behind August Priska, the throwing king. Boy, are we coming to that in a minute. And so Peck up front, he works really hard. He looks after the football. Some superb work very early on when he was under defensive threat, battles. He's got the fight in him. He keeps the ball. But I don't know. I would rather another option in the mix to play. If we're going to stick with this formation for the bulk of the season, all signs are we are. I mean, we've been watching Chris Davies Blues for a couple of years now. The police siren there, that was Alex Cochrane calling the police on his teammates. But if we're playing this formation, I'm not sure I want Peck in that role. I mean, Stansfield is still out on the wing a little bit, although tellingly, 2 shots on target There's still the where are we playing him? Have we got it right? Speculation about him moving on and stuff like that. But in terms of energy and press and work rate, he's comfortably right up there in our team. Peck, don't know, especially now we've got Jhon Solis, and not the Jhon Solis like 3 weeks into a signing where he's getting sent off against Millwall. Jhon Solis, who's used to us, who now, accepting the fact he's got a stray pass in him a couple of times a match, he's just a rock, isn't he? I mean, I'm sure we'll talk about just some of his passing in the match we saw today. He is undroppable off the back of the matches so far. You know, he's heading towards Clara Mountain in terms of like undroppableness. Making up words as I go here, but it's quite late at night. Maybe I need a bit more apple juice. Hang on 1 second. You just entertain yourselves. Yeah, the apple juice has really helped. So, physically competitive. Our fullbacks are in him very early on, and Sheffield United seem to have this tactic of attacking down the left of let's go for Alex Cochrane. And honestly, in the early stages of the game, I'm kind of thinking, oh, he does look a little bit vulnerable there. Right up until the point where he didn't, that I don't know, Donovan just like seemed to have him on the ropes just very early doors, and then Cochrane worked him out. And then Cochrane's then spending far more of his time up the pitch, swinging in crosses like with abandon. I mean, tons of crosses, more crosses than the end of Monty Python's Life of Brian. From what I mean, they were just coming in left, right, and centre. Also, we've got in the early stages August Priska, very competitive up front. Made this point last week that the difference of the balls coming up to him now is. We've not got Marvin Duksh up there, who, I mean, in the nicest sense, appreciating he got, you know, what was he, top goal scorer last season. His chances of holding a ball were just roughly on, holding a ball up were roughly in line with my chances of winning like the women's Olympic ice skating championship at the next Winter Olympics. We were somewhere around there, although I concede that Duksh will score more goals for Blues than I will. And so, but Priska's in there and he's fighting and he's conceding fouls and he's winning fouls and he just looks slap bang in the midst of it. Now, my problem with this particular game is Priska was our target man striker and he did so much right, so much good, apart from the actual striking bit. And he might be at a fork in his career in that regard there, because there's Emil Heskey Road where you're doing all the donkey work for everyone else, and there's the road where I don't know, Peter Crouch or someone like that who could actually then get the goals for himself as well. Kevin Francis, do you remember him with his feet? No, Kevin Francis, it always used to be the paradox of anything that he was like 9'6". I wouldn't expect him to score a header, but with his feet, I just used to think he was great. Priska has a chance to be our lead goal scorer this season. This was an away from home game. I'm going to be fascinated to see how we set up at home and how that affects the number of chances on target he gets. But this was a working your backside off game for him. He worked his backside off. Total respect to that. But there are times when the ball was being zipped across the box, he wasn't there. He is a young man with an amazing throw-in, right? He is improving in the same way Vicente is improving, the same way Solis is improving. Lots of positives here. I can't be downbeat about like a 0-0 draw that I really enjoyed. I like Championship football. This, compared to last season, it's early days, but I'm seeing far more steel and physicality. It's the end result bit that's just the mild alarm bell. Where's Alfie May when you need him, right? Still, a note for Christoph Clara, who just headed everything back that was put in his direction. For Phil Neumann and his new haircut, I thought he looked equally comfortable as well. We've signed Dale Fry, who, at the point he was signed, it was just like, well, he's going to walk straight into the team. And he just can't, because Clara and Neumann are playing so well together. This is good. Also, there seems to be a newfound confidence in James Beadle as well. If we overlook the one fairly weak as piss punch he did, 20 minutes from time, that didn't really do anything. Couple of terrific saves here. One in particular from Patrick Bamford, which was their only shot of note Made all the more notable by the fact that after Beadle had pulled off a brilliant save from Bamford, Bamford then didn't just fall to the floor and just protest for a penalty, even though no one was near him. So maybe his brand is changing a little bit. Who knows? The template, though, for Blues away from home last season was too often for 5 minutes we compete, then they hit us with something and we just fold. It's just like we're like a wet fart at a wedding and just as welcome, and just collapse. Here we standing tall and we're standing stronger. 2 weeks running, and I'm not saying the opposition haven't had chances, but still, there's not been a desperate last-minute clearance. There's been good saves off James Beadle, but also that's what you have a goalkeeper for. Was it Ron Saunders said that about Tony Godden once? After Tony Godden had, I think it was Saunders was still the manager. Someone correct me if I'm wrong. But Tony Godden had pulled off save after save, and it was just like, that's what he's there for. I mean, Tony must have gone home, God bless him, rest in peace, that night, just like, oh, well, great job, well done there. The gaffer's totally got my back. But there was, after about 10 minutes, and it only took 10 minutes, we really started, I thought, to exert a little bit more control. I don't think we're at the dominant stage, but we had a run of like 4 or 5 corners very early in the game, and Sheffield United fairly quickly got onto the back foot. Oh, this is interesting. So much has been made, and God, Sky got about like 200 words out of it. Much has been made about our new set piece coach, Scott Fry, and you know, we had some quite interesting set pieces, to be fair. We were trying stuff. We were looking more dangerous from them. But also the key thing for me was we were putting crosses in faster and earlier on the whole. Now, there was a moment in the game where like Peck was perhaps slightly too slow with some of the passing interchange and could have got the ball in a little bit quicker. But the only reason that sticks in my head so much is it was more the exception to the rule, that our determination was let's get the balls in as fast as humanly possible. Let's put them on under pressure. Let's ask questions. And as we did that more and more, then Cochrane became less exposed defensively and became more confident defensively, but also he was far more advanced, and his dead ball delivery is great. If we can actually keep him fit for a season, I mean, it could be quite the difference, really. You know, we as much as like we're sad that Kai Wagner's gone. Kai Wagner was brought in because we were struggling with injuries at the left back back berth. A fully fit Alex Cochrane can hit a dead ball as well as anyone. I mean, we're heading towards Martin Granger level. Not quite at that because the free kicks aren't there, right? But in terms of being able to whip in a really fast cross, but also, here's the thing, actually wanting to. How many times last season, I'm not picking on him, I'm just citing him as an example, when Tomoki Iwata was right back, would he go forward as we're trying to like get back into a game and just be stuck when he went past the halfway line? Where do I put the ball now? Who wants it? What I like about the way we played today is the first chance we got at any point to put in a cross, we put in a cross. The problem was no one was on the end of it. No one was on the end of it. That's where the Stansfield question might come in, to be fair, as well. But then do you disrupt the formation setup that's given us relative comfort over 2 away games? And again, we've not had that since the League One days. And even League One, if we lose the rose tinted specs on it, it was a bit more ground out than the 111 points thing. Look, I'm not denigrating that at all, but it's just like we want to be up that end of the table. We want to finish higher than 10th this season. I just think it's worth recognising stuff like that. There was one bit as well, because Stansfield was discussed a lot on the Sky commentary, where he just zips a really fast ball over to Carlos Vicente. You know, he just does an instant hit, knowing where Vicente is. And it's that thing of they know where everyone's going to be. Do you remember like the Gary Gardner point where Gary Gardner had some really good games for us, but also there was a whole period where he was just passing to people who weren't there, and he took a lot of the flack for that. But I remember sitting there thinking, well, maybe some of the flack should go to the fella in training who is supposed to be there. He's made you look like a bit of a dick there, Gary. And so that kind of stuff has been drilled out of the team There's one point as well. God, Clara did just like a ridiculously good long crossfield ball. I mean, David Beckham watched it, wrote it down, just thought, oh, that's good. I could probably learn from him. It was just really, really good and unleashed more problems that Sheffield United was struggling to cope with. On the Sheffield United point, I would suggest this game would have been very different had they not had one or two defenders who had 9 out of 10 games. I mean, fair play to them in that regard. Their rearguard action was terrific, but also they were basically the away team at Bramall Lane. They'll know that. They'll know they've got away with one today. They had to dig in and fight, and they got the one chance with Patrick Bamford where he stayed on his feet near the end, and that was basically it, wasn't it? That was their afternoon's work. They've gone home with a 0-0 that, bluntly, they're delighted about, I would imagine. And again, I respect other things are going on with that football club, but still 0-0. When you compare like the matches we were having last season, bless you, Jack Robinson. When you compare that, it feels a little bit different. Not carried away different. The point has been repeatedly made by cleverer people than me that the noise around Birmingham City is quieter this season, and I just think that's a little bit to our advantage. A 0-0 draw on the opening weekend, absolutely fine. Sky, select us for fewer games. Let us play our games at 3 o'clock on a Saturday and don't notice us till March. That would suit me down to the ground, because if we go a little bit off radar, we are solid. We're perhaps slightly less interesting. We're not at like the level of how ground out the Alex McLeish promotion season was, but the early signs here are there's a bit more street savviness to us, and I hope so anyway. But I mean, I do keep banging the drum. First games of the season, who knows? People are enthusiastic then. Wait till like a wet like November evening where it's -3 and everyone's in a bad mood, not least the fans. That's when you find out. I thought we looked comfortable for loads of this game, in truth. And I want to salute a couple of players. Bright Osayi-Samuel, for one. There was one point, I think it was about 35 minutes in, where he wins a game wins a challenge that's 40-60 against him, and he wins it by a foot race where he's aching to get back. And we had one or two instances where he did that last season, but he's a 90-minute player for the first time as a Birmingham City player, to me, and you can tell the difference. I hope he stays fit. Ethan Laird must be watching, just thinking, I might be in trouble. I know he got on the park by the end, but at this stage, I don't know. I mean, he's looking much better at the moment, Osayi-Samuel. I think we tell the difference with it. Jhon Solis was my man of the match, and Jhon Solis in this game was absolutely immense. Accepting the stray passes, which I think he's a young midfielder, and I think that comes part and parcel of it, and hopefully will gradually eradicate from his game, not least because my hairline's fairly crap as it stands. I mean, the hairs I've got to lose are not on my head, let's put it that way. But also some of the cultured passing, and just like he wants the ball. And he's comfortable on the ball, and he can find like a really delicate pass. Our best chance in this game came in the second half, where Carlos Vicente is set through, and he's set through by Jhon Solis, A, seeing where the ball should go, and B, putting it exactly there. Vicente then bombs through, and as everyone has pointed out, I've got no insight here, should have shot, tried to square it to Prishka, Sheffield United could recover. But it was Solis who unleashed it. Vicente always looking to do the run, and the signs are positive there. No, this isn't like a striker who's missing 9 chances or anything like that. We're grinding out the chances still. Our team is not complete, and Solis is, I mean, it's borderline playmaker passes, isn't it? And I didn't think that's really what we signed him for. He is potentially immense. Potentially immense. Certainly in the games we've had this season, he looks immense to me. There was a penalty shout, I should note, that we had. I found that quite hard to call, no matter how many different angles that we were sent, where the Brentford player, was it Donovan as well? The Brentford player looked like he might have kicked Neumann. I don't know. Couldn't call it. in truth. I thought the ref had a really good game as well. I thought he let it flow. Yellow cards weren't coming out left, right and centre. In the scheme of things, I like games like that rather than the stop-start ones. So, I'm not really grumbling that much there. I'm looking at our team. I'm thinking Solis has become a foul magnet that people just want to nobble him, which is the ultimate compliment to him, really. There is an intent to go forward. I think 5 minutes before half-time, Cochrane has a shot, which is not mentioned in the match reports that I've read, but was a far better shot than it looks. And it just happened to be blocked by a Sheffield United defender willing to put his body on the line. It's just like, yeah, fair enough. And we're having lots of positive. I mean, you get to half-time at 0-0, but we're having lots of positive pressure, lots of shots on target. And the cliche of the away performance is you hold it steady for an hour and then you push. Whereas by the first half, on points, we were winning it. In the second half, we were significantly more in control up until the point where we gave them a little moment back into the game. But we looked together. We looked like a collected football club who knew what we were doing, who weren't panicking. It helped we hadn't conceded a goal. And we haven't this season as well. I mean, the reason the season officially started last week is because now we can say, rightly, 2 clean sheets on the bounce. All right, 3 shots on target is all we've had, 36p to children in need. Fizzy Church on the way. There are problems to solve there, but the whole building from the back. Do you remember when Trevor Francis, when he was manager, used to talk about our back 8? I don't think we're quite at that level, but certainly the way that players were supporting each other, giving each other out balls, I thought that was really impressive. And I don't know, I just sat there thinking, Sheffield United aren't going to score here, are they? And I think they have regressed slightly. We have progressed slightly. But I don't think it's been a seismic difference in either team, really. We just looked more of a team. The problem, of course, is the first shot on target didn't come until 62 minutes in. It was Stansfield. That I mean, the chance looked like it had gone. Then he wins the ball back and hits it really low, hard and fast down to the keeper's left, wasn't it? It was a near post shot. You'd expect the keeper to save it, but the pace of the shot meant it was slightly more difficult, I think, than it actually looked. Keeper does duly save it, pushes it away, and that's our first shot on target. And therein lies the problem. So we do then have another one where Stansfield puts in a long effort, which is comfortably saved. Iwata had a long shot just inside the second half that had sailed over. We weren't really troubling people in terms of shots, but we were troubling them in terms of crosses. I mean, there was one that, Damari Gray comes on fairly late in the game, 15 minutes to go for Stansfield, and he puts in a devilish cross, and there's no one there. And honestly, I could have filled this video with the number of times Cochrane puts in a cross, Gray puts in a cross, and there's no one there. And it's just, I don't know. I mean, we'll see what Luis Vasquez brings over the coming weeks. Some kind of poacher in there. I don't know. I don't have the answers. I've just downloaded, right, Football Manager, 2002, Championship Manager, 2002, 2003. Because modern day Football Manager, it's just like watching a spreadsheet. If I start to play it, it will grind my computer to an absolute death. Whereas the peak of that for me was when Championship Manager just kind of segued into Football Manager. That was the sweet spot. So I've got hold of one of the older versions of that. I'm going to play that, and I'm going to base my entire insight and expertise on football tactics based on that. That or on, I don't know, I've mentioned it before, Tracksuit Manager on the ZX Spectrum. Graham Taylor's Football Manager on the Commodore Amiga was all right as well. Maybe I'll use that. I don't know. But that's what you're getting, really. There are other people who are better at this. Honestly, I am the least qualified and least best of all the Blues podcasters and vodcasters you can find. But I'm the only one, as someone pointed out in the comments last week, with Skeletor in the background. So, swings and roundabouts, folks. Swings and roundabouts. 0-0, right? It's 0-0. I managed to get a lot of mileage out of the fact it's 0-0. I wrote some more notes, but what's the point in reading them? It's just like, there was a shot at some point. Sheffield United looked like an away team. Beadle, couple of good saves, not least the one that was offside as well. I haven't mentioned that. Vicente had the deflected shot. That was all right. Vicente wants to shoot most of the time. Makes it ironic. The one time he goes one-on-one, he doesn't. That's a frustration. But still, my conclusion on this is positive. It's just the kind of game that Premier League fans hate to watch because it's like two championship teams duking it out. But in terms of who was the better team today, I would suggest it was us. I don't think many neutrals would disagree with that either. In terms of who was playing the better football, I think it was us. Some of our passing was great today. You know, in terms of who was the best team at finishing, I mean, it was none of them, was it? But in terms of correcting wrongs from last season and learning lessons from last season, I am quite oh God, I shouldn't say. Quite enthused, really. I think we're doing all right. I think the expectation level is lower. I think the noise is lower. I mean, you look at the table tonight, nowhere near the top, you know, it's fine. But we look like a team. We look like a team in need of two more players. I know, two more players. Ideally, one of them's Lionel Messi, but two more players, right? With some attacking impetus. The left wing question not yet answered, will be answered. Another attacking player in there, but so far, not bad, not bad. And I mean, ultimately, my thoughts lie with two people still. Number one, a young lad who had a dream of acting, who never realised it would take him to such terrifying, deeply unpleasant places. This one's for you. And then to Alex Cochrane, who he's determination to throw in cross after cross after cross and then watch as like no one got on the end of it. Alex, this one's for you as well. I've just booked my parking for next week. We are back at St Andrews at Knighthead Park for our first competitive match there in about 17 years, it feels like, right? Hopefully the hot water's working. Hopefully there's a decent cup of coffee. Hopefully they've not put the price of those bloody burgers in the car park. Let's see. I'm genuinely intrigued, given how solid we look away from home, how much of a chance we'll take at home. Home to Bristol City. Let's find out, friends. And if it works, I'll keep the curtains up, and then maybe if it really goes well, Children in Need might have, I don't know, another 60p by this time next week. That'd be amazing. See you then.